There we go. Okay, cool. We are recording. What week is this again? Week 3?
And I'm responsible for the issues, for the demos, sorry. And yes, so we're very excited about your demos and what you did the last week. So who wants to start sharing your code? Which team wants to go first?
I think we can start.
Well,
What do you think, Katja?
We have 2 issues. So do you want us to?
Okay, maybe I think I can share and then you talk about the
sure.
The thing after. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So so the issue we had to work on this week was to validate this form so that if a user writes an item that maybe has some punctuations or it's an uppercase, so we have to make sure that we remove them and make sure that the item is not the same as what's already in the database. So let me just write something just to add in the okay. So if I try to maybe add tomatoes again, it's going to say that the item is already in the list. Maybe if I put some space, it's going to say the item is already on the list. Also, if the item is empty, the item name is empty and the frequency is empty, it's going to also display this field is required. Yeah, so that's it. Let me also share the code for that. Okay. So we first created 3 states. One to take care of duplicates when the field is empty and then when the frequency field is empty. And then, so when the user submits, we first transform the user input just to remove punctuations or just put it in lowercase. So we created this file called okay, where is it? Code transform user input, and then it replace. Wait, hope you can still hear me, right? Sometimes my internet is. And then we use this regex pattern to remove any punctuations, and then put it into lowercase, and then we also removed any space that might be at both ends. And then after that, we started validating. Okay, we also got items, all the items from the database using this code, which returns an object containing an array, and then we get the array here. So we first check if that array includes any item with the same name, and then if it contains, we set has duplicates, and then we return. So this will then come here and set the error has duplicates, then it will display this field error. Item is already on the list. And then, so if the item doesn't have the same name, it will continue here. It first checks if the item name is empty and the item how soon field is empty. So if they're both empty, it would set the both text to true. and also print the error here. Is frequency and is empty. And then also we check if the name is empty, and then we check how soon. Also, it's going to be the same thing. So if all the fields like satisfy all this condition, it will then add an item to the database using this function that we've created here. So that's all, and then Katia will explain about the Firebase hooks. Okay, I think I should stop sharing.
I think if you go up to stop share.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
yeah.
you go. I always lose sight of it as well.
Thank you.
Do you see my browser okay? Yeah.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a diagram to explain what we needed to do. When the user first comes to our app, what we wanted to do is check for a token. If it doesn't exist, we want to generate it. Also, we want to go to Firebase and create an empty document for them. This will have a randomly generated ID, and inside the documents, we will have an items field, actually empty at that point, sorry, and a token field with the token associated with that user. This is our starting point. And then the first time the user adds, for example, apples, we go and grab this user's individual list, and we put apples. This is not apples. Well, actually, yeah. So we put apples inside. And if we already have a token, it's even easier. We go to Firebase, get the right document and add items to it. So in the deployed version, it looks like this. Let's say I'm an unauthenticated user. I land at a home view where I can click a button to create a shopping list. Doing this will generate a token and an ID of the list associated with my token, and then I can go ahead and start adding items. And if we go to the database UI, we can immediately see those rendered in the database. So let me show you how we implemented this in the code. Just let me know if you see the VS Code. Do you see my VS Code?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so how do you move your face in some way? Okay.
Oh, you didn't mean just hide them.
Okay, so on the page load, we check for a token and a collection ID. If they don't exist, we set them both to an empty string. And here we are actually using a custom hook So it has inside all extracted logic for fetching data from the browser local storage or storing data into the browser local storage. And we did that to be able to avoid repetition, and we use the hook in several parts of our app. So let me go back to the JS. Next, when a user without a token clicks the create a shopping list button, we create a token, we set it into state. Also, we go to the database and create an empty list document for them. Inside it, we will have an items field, empty at that point, and a token with the token associated with that user. Also, by that point, we get hold of that user's list ID. We make sure we keep a hang of it because that's what later on will allow us to fetch individual users list. Here we have a use collection data hook. With it, we listen to the user list data in real time, and with it, we get back everything we need, including the user list data, as well as the loading status and the error. And then in the add view, so when the user submits a form, we fire a handle add function. We do event prevent default, and then we call an add list item with an item and a collection ID as its arguments. And what this function does, it goes to Firebase, it gets the right document with the right collection ID within the list collection, and it updates the items field with the Firebase Firestore field value array union method, and it updates the items field. And this is it. This is everything concerning the issue.
Yeah, great. That was much code, much new code. But yeah, and again, very, very well explained. It's very confident to listen to your explanations. I would have a question. It's just a small question about why did you decide on not having the frequency as a default value that there's already the 7 days, for example, in it? It was, for example, last week you had it as a default, and now it's empty and you have to set one of the three. If you know what I mean.
I think I know why. To be very honest, I've done so much refactoring. We've done a lot of refactoring, and I might not be able to answer that straight away.
I think we decided that because we wanted to also check if a user maybe didn't select something. So because if we make it default, then we might miss that the user didn't add something.
Okay, great.
That makes, oh, I'm sorry, Golfo, go ahead.
Sorry, this makes kind of sense because, you know, if this way you force the user to pick a frequency. If you had the default frequency, maybe the user might make a mistake, and, you know, he will just add the item quickly. So this is a good view, a good opinion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was totally gonna say the exact same thing. Yeah, actually, no, I really think that, yeah, because before I would be like, oh yeah, just set the default to like 7 days. But then, yeah, then if you're just writing tomatoes and then you're like, okay, just go enter it, but you really want it for like 14 days. Yeah, that's a great user experience check. I like that. Very good work. I also like the use of that custom hook as well to prevent all that repetition. I think that's a really good thinking there.
Mhm.
Yep, you did a really great job. I'm just a bit curious about the logic for the errors. I remember it was around line 42, but I don't remember what file. Because there you make some checks. First, you check if both the errors are, I think if the user has both not entered the frequency and not entered an item, something like that, you check for that, and then you check some errors separately. So I wonder, why are you doing both checks the first time? Do you have a separate error and when both are empty? And why don't you just check, okay, and why do you return and not check each of the errors and maybe display all three of them?
So we needed to check.
Yeah, you
for-
can share it, because I think I remember the code like that. The code isn't wrong. I'm just curious. I just didn't understand so well what's going on with the errors.
Mhm. Okay, let me. Okay, so without this check, the error message would only be displayed. For example, if we checked only for the first field, if it was empty, then the error message would have been displayed only for the first field, and the frequency field, even though left empty, would not have an error message. So this is why we had to add this if check as well. And the return was necessary, because without the return statement, the code would just continue running on and on and on. And yeah, we would keep on adding things that we do not want to the database. So
And
yeah.
you would add, okay, so if there's an error, you just stop, you return, the execution stops. Okay, cool, awesome, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
The code was very clean once again. And I liked, I don't know, there was quite a few code because there was a lot of things to do, but it was also short, like in a good way, but not very short to the point that it's unreadable, but not too verbose either. It was just the right amount, I think. So great job.
Yeah, true. Yay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
then let's go to the next team. Who wants to share your screen and talk about the code?
Hello, good afternoon. Or what time is this where you are? I will be sharing my screen and sharing the work we did with it.
Okay, great.
Just a moment. I always forget where the button is. So sharing the screen. Moment, please. Oh yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, so the task for the week was for us to create a form. I'm sorry. We're to create a form that allows the user to join with an existing token. So let me just reload. Sorry, my internet is kind of slow today. So yes, great. Okay, so here, can we see my screen clearly? And can we hear me clearly?
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so we created this form, and if the user enters a token that does exist, let me check the database for example. What's this embarrassing? Just copy that. Yeah. Control V. Yeah, so they are able to join the list and then collaborate with the and add items to the list and just essentially act like they have full access to that list and stuff. Sorry. Well, we put a few checks in place to ensure that one, so that the user is not able to enter like an empty string as a token. So the input is disabled when there is no when there's nothing entered. But once there's something entered, then they can submit. So if we put like any random 3 words which don't exist in the database as a token. Yeah, so the user gets an error message that says the token doesn't exist. They should either try entering a new one or creating a new list. Right, so I will just show the code we wrote to achieve that. So first of all, in the app.js file, right, we passed down set token as a prop to the home component, so that from these components would be able to set the token to whatever the user inputs if it does exist in the database as a token. So first of all, we created a form element here that allows the user to input a string and then submit that. And the button is disabled if the length of the input is less than 1. And then we created this element for the error message. Clicking the button calls this join list function, and then we check if the token the user inputs does exist in the database by querying the collection. And so we use the where method, and the where method accepts 3 parameters: the field, which will be checking for the operator, which is a string, and then the particular value that we want to compare. So we take whatever the user inputs, we trim the end so that even if there's like an empty space, it doesn't, if the token does exist, it doesn't return an incorrect, doesn't return an error message. And then we use this query snapshots parameter here is an inbuilt parameter in the Firestore API, and it basically returns the document, like an object of document snapshots from the database, which is basically the result of the query. And we say if this is empty, that means if nothing exists, if no particular token like this exists in the database, then display the error message. So we set the state of the message variable to this, right? And then if it is not empty, which means that token does exist, then we set the token to that particular value. And because of the use effects in the app.js, that means token is stored to local storage, and then it's the whole function for adding items and displaying the list view is called. And then if there's an error, this should be displayed in the message. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I would already have a question because I think it was a little bit too fast for my eyes. Could you show me the app again and the Firestore?
What?
The app and the Firestore, because when you inserted the existing token, was the item, which is tomatoes, was it shown in the app, in the list?
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So the problem right now is that because we've not merged the work for both teams, there's a bit of a difference in that the former PR was writing to this collection, right? For Kassia's work now writes to this collection. So while we search from here, if the list still reads from here, so it won't display until everything is all merged.
Okay. One of the other mentors have any questions, comments?
I have just a comment on another. I love this other good UX kind of impulse of just disabling the button if there's nothing added. I think that's another just great simple way to just like show, okay, obviously there needs to be something here before you press enter, which seems obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many people just like want to press a button with nothing there. So I think that's another great, reflex for UX, for user experience.
Thank you.
Yep, I mean, Julia and Alex already asked what I was going to ask. So I just want to say congratulations, did a very great job like the previous week. Yep, thanks for clarifying that you need to merge so we could see the full result. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, both teams. I'm already excited for the next week's demos because I'm so obsessed how calm you always explain the code, and it's really, really good. Yes, then if there are no other questions, we could go on with the learning module, which would be about pair programming today.
Yes, sweet. Does anyone have any other questions about anything? And if not, I will share my screen. Now I'm getting all mixed up on sharing my screen. Okay, there it is. It is confusing on Zoom, I feel like. Okay, so we have a learning module. I'm presenting this one. I know I presented last time, but don't worry, after this, you will have a break from me hogging the screen and presenting these learning modules. So it's a quick one today on pair programming. And I think everyone, obviously, over the last couple of weeks has had a chance to experience pair programming, and whether this is kind of your first experience of it in a real collaborative sense. That's awesome. And I'm glad that we've been able to have these experiences. And then otherwise, if it's not, if you've had experience before coding with someone else remotely or in person, I think there are some good tips in here just to be able to reflect on your current practices or your current mindset about pair programming. So essentially, just as a high level overview of pair programming, typically it's, when you think about it, and again, this isn't just like this is the only way to do it, but this is kind of a general framework of it. And when we're in the same place, which we are not because Collab Lab is remote, but when we're in the same place, so whether that's in the same classroom or in the same workplace and office and you're on your team, pair programming basically means when two developers are at the same computer and one person's writing code while the other person is watching, and it's kind of this idea of using two brains as one to be able to collaborate and write the code, as opposed to just doing it by yourself with working just like one person in front of the computer and that's all. And so if we're looking at this in a visual representation, so when we have the pair programmers, we have two positions, and one is the driver and then the other is the navigator. So we can think of the driver as the person who is like in control of typing and writing the code and basically carrying on the act of like programming the code. It's just, I'm sure that everyone here has been in this position where you're the one writing and you're basically just like, okay, how do I get from point A to point B, just like coding this up. And then the second person of the pair is the navigator. So they're the one who's kind of like keeping an eye on things. Like if there's something that maybe the person who's coding isn't necessarily, or if they're missing something, they can be like, oh, hey, you know what you missed? I think if you just add that there, this will work better. Suggesting different things that might work. Again, this idea of using two brains instead of just one, and just making this process overall more, I would say like more effective and more able to catch errors before they get there. And then kind of like, how I have this picture in my brain and I can't, kind of like clearing the path for the person who's driving and for the person who's coding. And so they're able to kind of keep an eye on things, and both people have this idea of where they want to go, And then the navigator is able to have this more high level overview of the code that's being written, whereas the driver is able to be like on the ground and like actually coding. And so this is it's kind of the general idea. It doesn't necessarily always have to be like that. Sometimes you both can be kind of doing things, but that's kind of the general idea of like having one person doing like the driving, like the actual coding, and then the other person kind of navigating, reading the map, or just keeping an eye on things as they're panning out in the code. And if anyone has any questions, as always, feel free to interrupt me. There's just a couple slides in this one, so we're gonna finish it up pretty quickly here. So for pairing remotely, which is what we're doing, it's kind of the same idea as the two people pairing together in person, so with like the driver and the navigator. So in this case, like what we've all experienced here is we have two developers that are on the same video screen or call. Excuse me, the driver, the person who's like really coding and going through it is sharing their screen and codes, and then the other person is kind of providing feedback or suggesting changes, asking questions, that kind of thing. After that, the driver pushes the code up into GitHub so that the other person can pull it down locally and then can work on it on their end. And then whether in that same session or a different one, the driver and the navigator can kind of switch roles so that the other person's driving, the one who was navigating before, and can kind of like go back and forth with this so that each person gets a chance to really like have some time with the code, kind of get a feel for what's going on, as well as being able to kind of make suggestions and be thinking about it in a more like bird's eye view kind of thing. A few tips for mindset and attitude about pair programming. So I think it's really, I know for it's not always the most natural thing, I think, when we're getting into pair programming. I think that a lot of times there can be different perspectives coming in, and it can maybe be a little bit, there can be maybe some suggestions made that maybe the other person, it doesn't come off as a suggestion or something like that. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind, this definitely helped me when I was first starting, is just to be able to think about this in terms of like being on the same team with someone. You're both trying to achieve the same overall goal, and each person is bringing their own perspective in order to like make that two brains together at once kind of thing, make it like a faster process and a more seamless process. Some concrete things to keep in mind that are listed here is keeping what's called a beginner's mind, rather than if you think something should be done one way and only thinking that way, and only thinking, okay, this is the right way, this is there, if any other way isn't correct. Being able to kind of embrace this idea that there's so like maybe infinite ways to get to what you want to do, or get your code to do what you want to do. And so being able to embrace someone's questions about your code, or just questions about like ways to do it correctly, will really help with just being able to let go of your own, I guess, preconceived thoughts about what the code should look like and whatnot. The second point here is it's not about teaching or mentorship. Again, it's this, we're on the same team. We're both want to achieve this goal, and like let's put our minds together to do it as fast and effectively as we can. Overall, it's really a great opportunity to learn. Sometimes I've gone into programming or pair programming before, kind of nervous because I might not know as much as my pairing partner does. But every time I start with it, I am always reminded, like, okay, this is really a great opportunity to learn. No one is here to judge my ability or judge what I can't do. It's really just an opportunity to communicate and to just overall learn from your partner, whether it's really in terms of the skills you're learning, or like how to pair programming, how to communicate. It's a great opportunity for that. And then in terms of like drivers versus navigators, so drivers, instead of kind of barging forward and continuing to code and just thinking, kind of like treating the session as like just a solo coding session, it's important to try to kind of like come to an agreement before proceeding. So rather than just like going on and coding what you think, maybe just pausing and saying, okay, I'm thinking about taking this direction or writing this way instead of this way. What do you think about that? And then that opens the door for a little bit of discussion. And even if it's just like a yes or no, it still creates that kind of back and forth that's so important for pair programming. And then on the other hand, for navigators, it's suggested about asking and not just telling. So like kind of the exact same thing, but just flipped over. So instead of just kind of dictating, okay, this is what we do next, do this, do this, do this. It's more of like a, hey, like, what do you think about doing this? Or like, hey, have we thought about all the possible ways that this can be done? And so I think at the end of the day, thinking about all of this as more of just like a conversation and a collaboration session where we can learn and also reach the conclusion or the goal both quickly and effectively, more so than just doing that by coding on our own. And actually, yeah, I think that's it. We'd love to get I know we have about 10 minutes left, but if anyone has anything to share about their pair programming experiences so far, we'd love to hear about it. I know that you all have had experience with it. So if anyone wants to share about it, we'd love to hear it. Anyone? Any developers? What have you liked so far with pair programming? Or are there things where it was difficult to kind of get into the hang of it or get used to? Anything?
Sorry, for the past couple of minutes, I had to go to the other part of the room. Did I miss something?
No. We were just trying to ask. We were trying to get some experiences or like some personal experiences of pair programming in the group.
I had the comment when you said that you worry if the other person knows more. I kind of worried too, but now I see it in a different way. I'm glad if the other person knows more because I could just say all of the wrong things and the other person will say, there's a better way to do that. Yeah. So it makes me feel more safe that there's somebody more experienced that will guide me. And on the other hand, if I am more experienced, then maybe I can teach something and learn it better myself. But as you said, it's important not to judge because when you're more experienced, you have to remember that you were also a beginner once. And I think everybody remembers that. And as I said, the benefits when you're less experienced, they are more obvious. Yeah. So pair programming is always a great experience.
Yeah, great. Do any developers have anything to say about that? We'd love to get some sort of like input on that, or anything that could be improved or that kind of thing.
+1 on what Golfo said. Also had this thing of feeling like I don't know anything, so I don't know what I'm going to say or whatever. But actually, sometimes I realize, actually know some stuff. Like I've been reading and it's going well. And also, being on the navigator side and trying to ask questions instead of telling like you have to do this, you have to do this. I think it's a good way of communicating and not trying to tell the person like, I think that's what I loved so far about pair programming.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think that's totally true. I think too, it's so easy for us to get into like this, like, I don't know, I don't know as much as I should, even though that's totally not even a metric that we should be measuring, but as soon as we get onto the call, yeah, like you said, Cynthia, so much of like, wow, okay, I actually do know this, and it just kind of comes naturally when you're talking about it. Anyone? Yeah. Anyone else want to add their input? Going one?
Yeah, I will share some experience. In my TCL, in the last cohort, sometimes there were time issues, what's it called, issues, that we could not find a great time to do pair programming. That's why I actually did pair programming about the half of the cohort, and the other time we did it asynchronously. So yeah, because maybe the other person had time only on Tuesday, and so I said, yeah, we could do it asynchronously if the other one agrees. And I started already with the code, and the other person, he or she, would look through the code or made suggestions and updated the code with the input. And I think it was also a great experience, but of course I know TCL is normally all about pair programming, but yeah, I think when there are some time issues or something like this, that the asynchronous way is also a good way to learn. I also think that I learned from it because I suggested a code, and we also talked on Slack, hey, what do you think? And we also talked about the code, what could be improved and why it could be improved. And for me, it was also a good way to learn, even if we were not pair programming at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to just go ahead. I will share these resources in the Slack channel, but there's definitely a few good articles here, just kind of illustrating a little bit more with pair programming or effective collaboration tools, or different attitudes and mindsets that you can take into your next pair programming session. So with that, that is the end of that learning module, and thank you for your attention. I think we can move on to next week's issues now.
So I'll be presenting the issues, but most importantly, before moving on to the new issues, is everything okay with the older issues? Do we have any more work that we need to do? It's better to finish up everything in the previous issues. And, maybe we can cut the scope of the current issues a bit, or we can...
we haven't merged our PR because of that unsanitized or sanitized input thingy.
Okay. I think that's correct. I think you already have the code, though. The code is okay.
But didn't you say that it's incorrect?
I don't, maybe I forgot to tell you. I think I asked Alex, because we discussed this with Alex, and she said that it's okay to, sanitize the input when you enter it. You can leave it like this if you want. It's okay.
Okay, then we will merge it then tonight.
Okay, it's okay. You can go ahead and merge, and maybe it will be a bit of work. Can it be merged? Can both be merged automatically? Maybe there will be some conflicts. I think it won't be, a 1 minute thing. It might take some work.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I already know what will need to be changed. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so, pay attention to the merge, make sure everything is merged properly. If it takes you more time and you don't have enough time for all of the next issues, that's okay. Just let us know in the Slack channel. Okay, great. So now I'll share my screen and we can check out the issues. So we have issue 7 and 8 this week. First is, as a user, I want to see a welcoming prompt to add my first item if my list is empty. So, right now when you go to the list view and you don't have any items, you just see a blank thing and you're not sure what exactly you should do. So you should show a prompt, for example, a button for the user to add their first item. This, just a simple button can do that. You tell them, okay, add your first item. You can add a welcome in text. something you can think about what you want. This issue isn't so clear because it isn't very strict and specific. Like you can think of how to implement it. Any questions?
Sorry, but aren't we adding items in the add view? Because the form is in the add view, right? With the add button. So the list view only lists the added items. So I'm not sure why the list view needs to have a button prompting a user to add the first item.
You know, because somebody might open the app in the list view and they might be a bit confused and they're like, okay, what should I do now? So, you know, for me, even a text that says click the button to add an item, or even a button that redirects them. But, you know, something that when you go to the list view and you see the empty list, somehow tell the user that, okay, you have to add an item. You can't just stare at an empty list. And it's kind of a call to action, as we call it, when you're on a site. Okay. And as I said, this, you know, you can do it in many ways. You know, there's this wireframe, but I'm not sure. Sorry, Ibrahim. Somebody is trying to talk, but I can't understand.
It's traditional, please. Yeah, I'm traditional that. Okay. It's traditional that.
Hey, Ibrahim, maybe if you want to use the chat, it's a little difficult. I think it's all breaking up for hearing you, but if you want to use the chat, go ahead and we can answer you there.
Sorry, I stopped the sharing. Okay. Sorry, I just found the correct wireframe. It's this one. So this, you know, helps you a bit more. And it says that these are navigation tabs, not buttons, the ones on the bottom.
Katya, does that make sense from having that on the
asking
list?
me. Yeah, I actually got it. Sorry, Golfo. I didn't confirm it. Yes, it made sense. Sorry.
I know, you know, the first I saw this wireframe and I thought it was the wrong one, and I opened the other one, but this is the right one. And yep, this makes sense. You add the button, and it allows you to add items.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, you can just redirect. You don't need to, you know, add the functionality there. You can redirect to the add item. Do it however you want. And as we've mentioned in earlier issues, that you just need, if you fulfill the issue, you're okay. You don't need to do any extra things. I'm not talking to somebody specifically. I mean you in a plural. Because in the end of the program, we'll have a couple of weeks to, you know, add extra fancy stuff. Sorry. Yep. I just saw the images. I'm thinking the list view should show a message for the user to know that the list is empty. Yep. I also agree, Ibrahim. Yep. That's we had the same thought with Ibrahim, the button to redirect. Okay, awesome. So if we are clear on this issue, we can move on to issue 8. So as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased, so the app can learn how often I buy different items. So the user is able to tap a checkbox or similar UI element to mark an item in the list as purchased, and the item should be shown as checked for 24 hours after the purchase is made, because we assume the user does not need to buy the item again for at least 1 day. Sorry. And let me show you the wireframe for this. Okay, so this issue has two main parts. The first one is add the UI element. The easiest thing to do is to add the checkbox. There are some colors here, but these are part of a later issue. So for now, you just need to add the checkbox, nothing more.
And what about the 24-hour bit? I didn't get it.
Yeah. It should be shown as checked for 24 hours. So the user can't check it again. But after 24 hours, it should be unchecked because then the user might want to buy it again. Okay, sorry, are you hearing some sounds from the background? The little puppy, it just ate, but I think it wants more food, so ignore it. Yep, so the whole point of this, the check-in and uncheck-in, is that now the user can add items, and now we are adding the next functionality, which is the user actually buying items. So when they've bought something, they check it. For 24 hours, it should remain checked. So you need to store in Firestore, you need to also save the timestamp when you buy it. And then when the user opens the app, you need to compare this against the current timestamp. So it should be displayed as checked if the difference is less than 24 hours. After 24 hours, you should uncheck it. And again, this can be implemented in a couple of ways. You can think about it a bit. We can discuss it again or on Monday or Tuesday if you're not sure how to do it, but it's I think it's necessary to think a lot about the logic before you start and be absolutely sure that you've nailed the logic, because then it gets a bit confusing. And if you have any questions or need any examples, it will be best to solve them in the beginning. So for now, what questions do you have? If you have any, of course.
Yeah, a question, please. I'm just wondering why it gets unchecked like after 24 hours. Since they've already indicated when next would be expected to purchase, why doesn't it get unchecked when it's due for the next purchase? Why in 24 hours?
Sorry, you asked why it should be checked?
Yeah, for like only 24 hours. I'm asking, since they already indicated when next they want to purchase, why doesn't it stay checked till it's due for the next purchase as like originally indicated by the website?
Because you might want to buy it again. So maybe you bought bread today and you want to buy bread again tomorrow. So it shouldn't stay checked forever. It should stay. This app assumes that you go shopping one time a day, once per day. So if you buy it, you check it, and then the next day it allows you to buy it again. So consider that checking an item means buying it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's to just interject here. Yeah, along with what Golfo said, it's kind of like you're having the app as you're going shopping. So it's basically like, okay, I have it checked. I'm going to the bread aisle, check that. Okay, I have that in my basket. And then you kind of like, it's almost like it's like a list, like with pen and paper, and you're just crossing it off. And then the next day it's unchecked. So, okay, if you're going, I can see what you mean though, Chinemi, about, yeah, if it's already going to be for the 7 days. But I think that just if we focus on this scope, later on in issues, we'll have ways to check like, okay, this was last purchased like 5 days ago, and then you'll be able to see, you'll be able to have more ability to manipulate how it's showing up in the app, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Gold. Thank you.
Alex, I liked your analogy that it's like one day you go shopping, you tick the items you bought, and the next day you get a fresh piece of paper with some new I mean, maybe you have the same items, but they're not ticked. I like that. Yeah, but as I said, there's a wireframe, but for now, focus only on adding the checkbox, because this wireframe is also for the next issues. That's where it has some more stuff. Okay, so now that we've looked at the issues, who wants to pick what?
The pairs for next week are Jeremy and Cynthia, and Katya and Ibrahim.
Cool, thank you, Julia. Okay, maybe, does anybody have a preference, or should I assign at random? If nobody has a preference, then issue number 7 goes to Cynthia and Jeremy, and issue number 8 goes to Katya and Ibrahim. Okay, I hope you enjoy them. Thank you very much. And as I said, whenever you have even just a very small doubt, post in the thread. Don't forget to tag us. It's even better if you don't tag a mentor individually. If you don't have a specific question for a specific mentor, it's better if you tag all of the mentors. So, you know, we can all see it and all discuss something. So thank you very much, and have a fun week, and good luck with the issues.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.